recording? I think
The red
so.
light's on.
Yeah, we're recording.
Okay. Gosh.
Yuck. What?
Why are you being weird?
I'm not being weird. You're being weird.
I'm not awkward. You're awkward. No, I'm kind of awkward.
Do you think I even know what awkward means?
No, unfortunately. I
Okay.
know for a fact you don't know what awkward means.
I can't help that.
You can't feel it.
I don't know that I've ever felt it.
You've never felt the awkward.
And
it shows.
I thought that was a question, but apparently not.
No. That was not a question.
Oh my God.
How's it going?
Hey, what's up, you guys?
No.
I've been banned from saying that on this podcast.
Yes, you have. Because you try to say it every week.
I'm going to make sure we can hear you. I think we can now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me
way better. Way better now. We got a new Zoom.
We've been playing.
We've been playing and we got a new Zoom. So I'm playing with it and figuring out how to use it. It's made specifically for podcasting.
Yes, it's a Zoom recorder, not a Zoom.
Mic.
The software that everyone lives their lives in nowadays.
I forget that not everyone actually works in theater. So they've not used like a Zoom mic to do promos and stuff like that.
That's a very niche market.
Everything about me is niche lately.
Yeah.
Especially my like complete suspicion of whoever put the Keith Haring illustrations on the square in Columbia.
I'm telling you, they're not familiar with the work of Keith Haring.
I mean, they can't be. I cannot fathom the idea that they know who Keith Haring is or what his art has represented before he died.
I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe there's a secret underground community you don't know about.
Secret underground progressives.
Isn't that what?
Isn't that what I am to begin with? I'm not secret.
There's nothing secret about you.
There's nothing quiet about me. There's nothing secretive about me.
Yeah, no.
I have yet to figure out how to be more secretive. Not a word. Shut your mouth.
It's going to be a lonely podcast if I don't talk.
Fine. Okay. So do I need to introduce this week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So since you're going to nerd out for the next hour.
Well, we'll see. My story's kind of short, but I want to nerd out about like what this is about.
Yeah. So last week we talked about housing, which is what I do. So I decided to throw Jeremy a bone.
Fine.
And
Throw
this
me
week
a bone.
we were talking about theaters on college campuses.
Which is super cool because theaters on college campuses are, well, theaters in general are haunted, right?
Right.
That's like the general consensus is that theaters, for whatever reason, are just really wrought with different, I don't want to say apparitions. I don't want to say like ghosts necessarily.
Spirits.
Or spirits. I think I just want to say
Legend. Memory.
things.
Echoes.
They're I think that they are wrought with my literal beard.
Just touched the mic. Yeah. That was some ASMR that we did not need.
No, I think that college campuses and theaters, but theaters specifically, they have a long tradition of ghosts, of being a hot spot for activity that can't really be explained.
Yeah, that's why they get their own lights.
And that's why they get their own lights. So there is a tradition in the theater, which ironically I don't do in the theater that I work in, but that's a whole other story. We've done it in some of the theaters I've worked in, but the theater that I'm currently employed by at the college, we don't use. But most theaters have what's known as a ghost light, which the whole purpose of rolling a ghost light out onto the stage when you're not there is so that the ghosts have some light.
Okay.
Right. It's supposed to be the light left on for them so that they don't feel like they're left in the dark.
And not because theaters are typically pitch black places, and you don't have to stumble around to find the light switch when you get there.
Absolutely not because of that. That would make too much sense.
That'd be too practical.
It would be. And honestly, the theater that I grew up performing in, I don't know if I've told you this story. It was pitch black when you came in the side doors, and you came in a side door that was just on the other side of the proscenium wall there. So it's in front of the stage, and you walked up some stairs to get up onto the stage there. So it was pitch black, and all you could see was by the light of the door. And the door this was like my senior year of high school. That door had closed, so it was pitch black. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I've performed on this stage since I was like 10. I've helped build parts of this stage when we extended it. Like, I know this space better than anyone else, right? So I think I know how to, drift up and get to the breaker box. I was incorrect, sir.
Did you land on your face?
No, I walked all the way across the apron, or the apron thrust, whatever's.
You're saying very theatery words that most people are not going to know.
The space that sticks out from the wall.
Okay.
Right, the playing space that's out there. I walked, and I thought I was going upstage to just behind the proscenium where the breaker box was. Okay. And I ended up walking a little bit further downstage, missing that wall altogether.
Did you walk off the stage?
And walking directly off the stage, not even hitting the stairs. The two sets of stairs that were on the stage on that side, I missed both. I just fell straight off, but I somehow had sense enough to turn my back and land on my back. And this was before a show.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a couple hours before a performance of a show that I was doing at the time. And I just remember going, And one of the girls that was working as our house manager, she comes in and she goes, Jeremy, are you okay?
Like, as you're laying on the floor?
Yeah. And I said, no. I can't breathe.
And you wonder why you have back issues.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that today when I bought a Theragun.
Okay, when you bought a
knockoff Theragun.
Yes.
But yeah, so we're talking about ghosts in theaters because theaters just tend to have this this weird aura. Yeah. Everyone I've worked with pretty much has had this idea that no matter where we are, there's a ghost.
Yeah.
At the theater that I work in, spoiler, we named the ghost there. We're not going to talk about that one today, but I will tell you that we named it the Kuka ghost.
I don't want to know.
Well, you know what a Kuka is, right? A nether region.
Oh, I did not know what that. Okay.
We named it that back when we were doing Godspell when I was a freshman in college. When a lot of this stuff was happening. It was before the renovation, which, again, did I not say in a previous episode, do not renovate spaces. You're going to piss off the ghosts.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we did piss off the ghost in VP Henry. But, yeah.
Okay.
That's my anecdote and my diatribe about ghosts in theater.
All right. So let's talk about one of them.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
You're going to go first today.
Yeah. So today I'm going to be talking about Rollins College.
Yeah, where is that? I know that name.
It is in Winter Park, Florida. It's outside Orlando. It's like northeast of Orlando. It's like the Orlando metro area.
Why do I feel like is it an NAIA school, maybe? You don't know that?
No. They're NCAA Division II.
They're D2?
They're D2.
Oh, okay then.
Whatever. They're the TARS.
TARS?
TARS. It is an archaic word for sailor.
Yeah, no. All I'm hearing when you say TARS is like the dialect of English I grew up with. It's like you're saying like a tire for
like
a car.
TARS.
Yeah, like TARS.
I'm needing TARS from a truck.
That's exactly what that sounds like to me.
I thought about the robot from Interstellar. It's named TARS.
I don't know if I've seen Interstellar.
Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway.
Oh, I know who's in it. I just don't think I've seen it.
I've got it on Blu-ray.
Of course you do.
Yep. But so Rollins was founded in 1885. It is a private liberal arts school. It is Florida's oldest post-secondary institution.
So you mean to tell me that a private liberal arts institution is one of the oldest institutions there?
It is the oldest post-secondary institution in Florida, and since its opening has been independent, non-sectarian, and coeducational.
I love that Doug completely skirted past that on me because he did not want to talk about the fact that it was a very old institution and that it was liberal arts.
Yes. In 2018, it had enrollment of around 3,100 students.
Okay, so it's really comparable to the school I work at.
Yeah, it's comparable to a lot of private
liberal arts.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really all the background I felt necessary on the school. So before we dive into the theater itself, we have to talk about who the theater is named for.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So Annie Russell was born in Liverpool, England, in 1864, and moved to Canada when she was a wee child.
Me.
Yep.
I will move to Canada next week.
So her kid brother, Tommy, was also an actor. And she actually ended up touring with Tommy Russell, and sort of kind of was like his manager / like caretaker as he toured, looks like through the Americas and the Bahamas, according to the Wikipedia article I wrote, or read, not wrote.
Doing what?
I don't know. There wasn't a lot of information on him.
Well, that sucks.
He didn't even have a linked Wikipedia article.
Oh, really? So she's way more famous
She's
than
way
he
more
is.
famous. So in 1881, she starred in Esmeralda in New York.
Like on Broadway?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
And many consider it her most iconic role. According to the Wikipedia article, she starred in over 200 performances, but according to Rollins College's website, she starred in 900 performances.
I wonder if that has something to do with where those performances took place.
Possibly.
You mentioned this to me earlier today without telling me like any context,
Mm-hmm.
and the more I think about it, the more I think about like we could add up a lot of what I've done, and it would end up being different than what I would consider my actual work.
Right.
So it definitely they could be adding in like stuff that she's done that wasn't considered like professional or something like that.
Right. So so she was in Esmeralda. It ran for a year at the Madison Square Theater. It is now considered one of her most iconic roles, but the reviews of it actually weren't great. She sang in this show, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, she can't really sing, and she's gonna hurt herself trying to sing."
I have feelings. I don't like reviews anyway.
Yeah, and it was weirdly included in this article. But over the next 15 years, she went on to star in many plays in New York, London, and San Francisco, gaining critical acclaim. But unfortunately, her career was also disturbed pretty often by extended illnesses. So she fell sick pretty often.
And what is this time frame?
So that Esmeralda opened in 1881.
Oh wow! So this is long before the fact that she performed in San Francisco is really interesting to me because we were just talking today about how theater didn't really do that.
Yep.
It only existed in New York.
Yep. Let's see. So she started in Esmeralda. Let's see some other shows that she was in: Broken Hearts, Young Mrs. Winthrop. That was in Philadelphia, actually. Sealed Intentions, Engaged, and let's see. That's a French word. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. She also appeared in Captain Swift in 1889. I didn't recognize any of these names. I didn't know if you would.
Even I don't recognize any of these.
These seem like
plays.
very old plays. She also did, like I said, some extended tours through Europe, but pretty gained acclaim both on the American scene and the European scene. So pretty famous at the time. In 1918, she officially retired to Winter Park after acting and falling sick and just needed a break. So at the urging of her friend and philanthropist, Mary Curtis Bach, Annie began teaching at Rollins College. The theater program was just starting out, needed some support, needed some experience, and Mary saw this as an opportunity to sort of jumpstart that program in her community.
Right, and bringing experience really helps programs like that, especially at small institutions.
Right. So Mary Curtis Bach actually went so far as to pay for the construction of a theater so that Annie would have a space to work in.
Does she have any rich children that I can go hit up?
At this point, it'd be great-grandchildren.
I really want a new theater building.
So Annie taught and performed at Rollins College from the theater was built in 1931. I don't know when Annie officially started teaching.
I mean, she probably taught before that.
Yeah.
But
she taught at Rollins until her death in 1936 from lung disease. Yep. So, the Annie Russell Theater is located on Rollins College's campus. It's built in 1931. It is actually the longest operating theater in Florida.
Oh, really? That's super cool.
It has never gone dark since its opening. They're currently in their 80th season.
They're probably dark right now.
No, actually, they're still doing some stuff, according to their website.
Yeah, that's because Florida refuses to shut down.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's performing in Florida right now. They're not even wearing masks on stage. Like, not even face shields.
Great.
Yeah, I'll show you that later.
Yeah. Anyway, they actually dedicated this season to women in theater, partially in memory of Annie Russell.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yep. So, the theater is built in the Mediterranean style. It took 9 months to build at a cost of $122,000.
What does that translate to in 2020?
I'd never do that math.
I do that for everything.
Has a seating capacity of 360, so it's a pretty big theater.
Well, 360 actually is a pretty standard size. The theater that we have on campus where I teach seats 314.
Mm-hmm.
So I bet that's a really good theater, and I bet it's raked seating, so that's probably good.
Yeah. I have a picture of the inside of the theater. So it's a pretty artistic looking interior.
Interestingly, the seating doesn't look raked, but
now this is pre-renovation. It's gone through a couple of restorations.
But it kind of reminds me of the major theater here on the campus that you work at.
Yeah, it is a very auditorium, flat. Not
yeah,
auditorium.
well, auditorium's what I have, but I think it reminds me a lot of the big theater here.
Let's see if I can find real quick this other.
Also,
picture.
If that's a picture of her, she's gorgeous.
Oh yeah, she was very.
It makes sense why she was famous.
Mm-hmm. And here's a picture of what it looks like now, and there are balconies.
Oh, that's super Florida.
It is very Florida, very Mediterranean. As Jeremy kicks the table.
They probably didn't even hear that.
419 full-scale theatrical performances have occurred on the stage since it opened. That doesn't include dance, children's, or instrumental productions.
And let me tell you, children's theater, that's some rough stuff. So that's probably a lot more numbers if they included that.
Yep. The theater received minor restorations in 1977 and 2011.
Oh, okay.
So new seating, new lighting, things like that. It was placed on the National Register of Historic Places by the National Park Service in 1998 due to its architecture and its contribution to the culture of Florida.
Well, yeah, it's on the oldest campus, so...
It's on the oldest campus, it's the oldest theater, it's just old.
Right.
And fun fact, all these facts were listed by the theater and the college itself on their webpage, and it was a list of fun facts about the Annie Russell Theater. The last fun fact on the list: color of the dress Annie's ghost wears, lavender.
Of course, they buy into the ghost.
They very much lean into the ghost. So every year, new theater and dance students they have a program to introduce them, and part of that is to tell them the ghost stories of the theater. It's that
old. I mean,
it's that old. It's that big a part of the culture.
Yeah.
So Russell's affection for the theater apparently keeps her spirit around. Her favorite theater seat, which is balcony, right side, third row down, second seat over.
Oof.
Is said to fold down independently and stay in that position whenever she particularly enjoys a production. So it'll just open by itself.
Yeah, let me tell you, seats don't do that.
Yeah, no.
As someone who's performed in a lot of theaters with seats like that, they don't just go down on their own.
Some have heard rocking sounds emanate from the seat, and a former lighting designer and production manager used to bring his golden retriever with him into the theater when he was working on stuff, and the dog would run over to the balcony, sit down by that seat, and look up expectingly as if waiting for pets.
No one can see my face, but that just warmed my heart.
Students rehearsing Alone at Night have experienced a lone invisible clapper coming from somewhere up in the balcony. It's not uncommon for actors to feel an affirmative pat on the back from an invisible hand at the end of a performance.
So this is a good ghost.
Yeah.
I'm here for this ghost.
So Annie not only directed and sort of taught the student actors, she also performed in many of the theater's early performances, including its inaugural performance of In a Balcony.
I've never heard of that show.
Yep. Annie actually had a private dressing room over the stage.
Of course she did.
It was accessed by a spiral staircase. But at some point after her death, workers removed the staircase, turned the space into a locked electrical closet.
And probably smarter. It was probably safer.
Probably safer, probably necessary. It's kind of sounded like that dressing room was built for her.
Yeah, and you need tons of electrical space. Like you've seen where the electrical space is in our theater.
Yeah.
It's like just in a hallway, and you have to keep all the doors shut because it's so loud.
Yep. So they turned this into a locked electrical closet. Has a bolt across it, but according to legend, the door occasionally opens during theater productions, which is considered another sign that Annie approves of a show.
Is it she approves, or she's like, no, we're done?
This evidently is a sign of approval.
Oh, okay.
When one of the current staff members of the theater was working on the crew of Enter Laughing. Again,
still nothing. Am I
she
just
was
not well read?
She was hyper aware of the door because it's one of the common stories that's sold to freshmen.
Absolutely.
One evening, as she helped prepare for the night show, she looked up at the door. Somehow, despite being bolted shut, it had crept open. And in her words, I got really freaked out.
Me.
But Annie's presence in the theater goes beyond showing her approval, and evidently she still cares and supports her students. Late one night, a young actress curled up on the theater's green room sofa and fell asleep. She awakened the next morning to find a blanket had been tucked around her, and a chair had been placed against the couch as a barrier so she wouldn't roll off. The night before, the chair had been across the room in a corner. When the actress started asking around, like, hey, who did this? She discovered that nobody who would have had access to the theater had done it.
Listen, anyone that sleeps in a theater needs support.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like Annie might actually even go beyond this and actually save her students' lives.
Oof.
Okay, so one night, two students were working by themselves on a stage set. One of them had climbed a ladder to hang or adjust some lights, while the other worked in another part of the building. Suddenly, the young man on the ladder felt a tugging on the hem of his pants leg. He turned around, expecting to see his friend trying to get his attention, but no one was there. He continued to climb the ladder and felt another tug. Again, no one was there. He just kind of shook it off. As he reached for the next run, he accidentally grabbed a live wire. The shock sent him reeling off the ladder. The other student heard the commotion, rushed out, and saw his friend lying unconscious on the floor. He called the nearest hospital and asked them to send an ambulance. But the dispatcher from the hospital said, an ambulance is already on the way. We just received a call. And he's like, what? She said, yeah, an elderly lady called just a few minutes ago asking for an ambulance to be dispatched. The student who fell off the ladder had a fractured spine but survived thanks to the ambulance's quick arrival. It's often thought that Annie had tugged on his pants trying to warn him about the live wire and then called for an ambulance before he even fell, knowing what was about to happen.
I have literal goosebumps right now over that one. That one's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's a lot because you're not supposed to be in a theater on your own working on stuff like that. Like, that's just not,
especially on a ladder.
Yeah, if you are going to be on a ladder at all, you cannot be by yourself. That actually came up like 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I think 5 years ago someone died being on a ladder on their own. They got killed working on lights.
Yep.
You do not work on lights by yourself.
Yep.
I worked on a lot of lights, and I will not do it unless there's at least two more people there with me.
Mm-hmm. So, going back to what you talked about of when she doesn't like something.
Yeah.
Basically, anytime a prop falls or breaks when it's not supposed to, it's blamed on Annie not liking the performance.
I'm going to start blaming our Kuka ghost every time a prop breaks.
The last superstition surrounding Annie's ghost is that if she makes an appearance early Wednesday morning, before a new play or musical opens, it will be a smash success. If she does not make her presence known the week leading up to a performance, it will be a flop, and something terrible might happen to some of the actors involved.
No.
So I think it adds to that kind of that this theater is haunted, you want it to be haunted. Like, you want her to.
Yeah, you want her to show up.
Yeah, you want her to show up because you want to know that you're going to do well.
Like, I'd be asking everybody, like, did you see her? Did you see her? Did someone see her?
Yep. Students have seen the figure of a woman wearing a lavender dress. One student reported seeing her passing outside the theater. Said the woman looked very lost and confused, and she asked her if she needed help, and she just stared at her. The student didn't think much of it and walked inside. Later that same night, a student who was on stage looked up and saw a woman in a Victorian-era lavender dress up in the balcony.
They're always, like, in a balcony.
Yep. So, which is where her seat is.
Oh, yeah, you did say that.
Yep. So, that is the story of Annie Russell and the Annie Russell Theater.
Oh, my God. I actually really love that in a lot of ways.
So, here is the outside of the theater.
Which is gorgeous. And the fact that you can see how much fly space they have.
Yeah, they have a huge sort of stage house. I feel like that was probably an addition later on.
I mean, probably, but it looks good.
Yep. This is the dedication of the theater when it first opened. It was still under construction, but they went ahead and did the dedication anyway.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yep. This is a picture of the inside when it first opened. And of course, we'll post all these on Instagram at Creepy Campus Pod. But really ornate, really pretty, very really Mediterranean.
Gorgeous. Yeah. Obviously, those old wooden seats, which my theater had when I started school.
Yeah, those have definitely been switched out. I think
they're
like a red velvet now, which seems very
course
typical. This is Annie's playbill from when she was in Of Mice and Men.
Okay. See, now that is a show that, judging just on her looks, just on what she looks like, I can tell she would be very good in that. Mm-hmm. And I just love that play to begin with. I love the book, but the play's really good. So yeah.
And then this is a picture of Annie at the dedication, and that's the cornerstone of the building that actually holds a time capsule with some Rollins College memorabilia and stuff that they put in there when they built the building. And
it's very like 40s-esque.
Well, it would have been early 30s.
Yeah. It's the hat.
It's the hat. It's the fur coat.
Yeah.
And this is Florida, and she's wearing a fur coat.
Oh my Lord.
So at most, even if this was in the winter, it was like what, 60 degrees?
It's like well, it's like 60 to 70 right now outside here, and people are like, "Oh, I gotta wear like everything I own."
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not cold. But yeah, so I definitely get her personality from that.
Yeah, so she is a very like caring, supportive sort of spirit, both in life and death, evidently. So yeah, that's Annie Russell and the Annie Russell Theater.
Okay, that's a really cool story, and it's gonna be even funnier because the story that I'm gonna tell today comes from a theater similar, and it's a similar haunting. Of course it is. Maybe we're both just drawn to like strong women in theater.
Well, I think it goes back to, we've talked about this before, is a lot of these legends are similar across.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about any yet, but like every school has like an axe murder legend, and
not my school.
And then some people
yours does.
Yes. And then some people I work with have talked about how my story from last week of Mary Mayo is very similar to the story of Maddie McLean here at WKU's campus.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So it's a very...
Well, you're also going to hear some similarity between the McLean ghost and what I'm going to talk about today, which is like, of course, but it lends itself to like whether you're a skeptic or whether you believe in this stuff. It lends itself to, why do we connect these stories? Is it because hauntings are similar? Because spirits, ghosts, energies have similar abilities? Or is it because they're all connected in how they're created?
They're all connected in how they're created, and they're all connected in what we're looking to get out of them.
Right. So it's totally up to like the listener, the reader, the experiencer.
Yep. Yeah, that's not a word.
That's not a word.
I like your enthusiasm, but it's not a word.
I have a degree in English.
What do you do?
Do not sing from the Avenue Q.
Yeah, I don't want to get us a copyright strike.
Boy, if they're giving us a tiny podcast that just started a copyright strike, they're really looking for stuff. Okay, so my story today comes from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Okay.
All the way in the South. We're going back down south to the University of Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. I need to check with Lee Dudes about that. So I don't have a ton of information about Alabama. I just didn't want to. It's a giant university.
Most people are familiar with.
Right.
Alabama.
It's not like it's Rollins College.
Right.
So on the campus of University of Alabama, there's a hall, okay? Rowand Johnson Hall. I have to say it very slowly because I keep wanting to say Roland. Rowand Johnson Hall is a building that contains a theater.
Okay.
Okay. So the theater within it is known as the Marion Galloway Theater. It's named after the late theater director of the mid-20th century, Marion Galloway. The Marion Galloway Theater is a traditional proscenium space, meaning that it's like a picture frame, like you're watching a movie.
Okay.
And it's one of the 3 theaters to serve as the home of the theater program at the university. So they've got a whole bunch on campus. But
big school.
Big school, got lots of theaters. I'll try to hide my bitterness.
I was going to say, can you sound a little more jealous when you say that?
I can't. So the big question here is, who is Marion Galloway? Mm-hmm. And you're gonna hear some things in here that I'm hoping you'll have I don't know if you're gonna have questions about, or if you're just gonna be like, oh. So Marion Galloway, she was a professor of speech and the director of the University of Alabama Theater from 1948 to 1973. So a little bit after what your story sits in.
Yeah.
She was truly an incredible artist, okay? She was specifically a director with ties to some of the greatest theater artists of the 20th century, which I want to get to in a minute.
Okay.
By most reports, she worked her ass off to keep that theater program running on a budget of $2,000 per year. And I didn't do the conversion either.
Okay, but that doesn't sound like a lot.
It's not. $2,000 per year is nothing when it comes to the amount of stuff you have to get together and pay to do theater. And this is also the early advent of American regional theater. So this is a big time for publishing companies to start charging rights for a lot of the plays. So
yeah. I say, doesn't your theater pay more than that in rights for one show?
Yes, it just depends on the show, actually.
Yeah.
So $2,000 a year. What she did actually, she worked backstage on everything. She really tried to do everything that was necessary to cut down on cost, so that they didn't have to go outside of their program to pay someone to do those things.
Like what kind of things?
Things like costuming, things like marketing, things like set design and set constructions, things like scenic design, things like sound design, lighting design. Does this sound familiar to you?
It does.
To cut down on costs, right? Because they only had her.
Yep.
Whereas, where I work, we have 2 people.
Yep.
But it's that love for what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And she really, really loved what she did. And that is something that's going to play into why her haunting, or her theater's haunting, is a big thing. So I've already lost my spot. So Marion Galloway also, I mentioned that she knew some of the greatest artists of that time.
Yeah.
She reportedly knew Tennessee Williams quite well. They both attended grad school at the University of Idaho, or not Idaho.
That's your grad school.
The University of Iowa. That's my second grad school, University of Idaho.
Yeah.
So they attended the University of Iowa, where she worked as a costumer for a production of Henry IV Part 1 that Williams was an actor in.
Oh, cool.
So she actually got to costume him, and they kind of built a friendship from that point forward.
All right.
So interestingly enough, Williams used the name Galloway for several characters in his plays.
Interesting.
He named Dorothea Galloway in A Lovely Sunday for Creve Coeur. And it seems like he would have named that after her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Galloway also claimed that Williams based Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire on her.
She claimed that, or he said that?
She claims it, and a lot of their respective friends have also claimed that.
Okay.
So he never said, yes, that's Marion Galloway,
yeah.
But I think that it's worth mentioning that it sounds like that because of The next thing I'm going to tell you.
Uh-oh.
There were several reports that Marion Galloway's husband left her to pursue a romantic relationship with Tennessee Williams.
Oof.
Big oof. And if my students that are listening to this, and I know there are a couple of you, if you went to see A Streetcar Named Desire with us last semester, before the pandemic hit, when we went to Nashville to see that, do you remember Blanche Duval's character? If you do, you'll remember that her husband... Yeah.
Awkward.
Very awkward. But apparently she was still a good friend to him, in a way. There are reports where she drove up to St. Louis to see a play that he was in, and she was very harsh, very critical, but he always regarded her as a good friend in that she was critical. Okay. Her criticism was never ill-intentioned. It was always there as a way to help him be better, which
as any good friend in your same industry would do.
Oh, absolutely. Like, if I'm doing a terrible job, someone needs to tell me, hey, Jeremy, that kind of sucked. Can you do something else?
Yeah, and it's like, you suck, but here's how we can make it better.
Right. No theater artist just says you suck. If they say you suck and they don't offer, like, here's how some things we could make it better, that's going to be... Right. That's a terrible friend and not a good theater artist. So, anyway, on to The Haunting, right?
Please.
So Marion Galloway died in 1980, right? But students and faculty alike agree that her spirit may not have left the theater that holds her name. Many students have reported seeing Doc Galloway, as they so lovingly called her. She did have a PhD.
Ooh.
In a white dress, roaming the halls of the theater, the stage, and the booth in the back of the theater. Okay. So one student specifically claimed to have walked past the woman dressed in all white while on his way to a class in the theater, like actually located in the theater. When he said hello to the woman that he saw, she appeared to have acknowledged him, but continued walking. Once he entered the theater and began conversing with some of his fellow classmates, he looked up to the wall and noticed a painting. Upon recognizing the woman in the painting, he told the other students, "Oh, hey, I just saw her out in the hallway." And one student took a moment before responding and said, "Well, if you did, you saw the ghost of Marion Galloway. She's been dead for several years."
Oof.
And that's not the only report of that. There's another report that I didn't write down.
Yeah.
But someone performing on stage said that they saw Marion Galloway in the audience, and she looked like she was really enjoying the performance.
I'm glad she didn't hate it.
Well, yeah, and every actor in the world, any actor who's like, I never look in the audience, I never see that anyone's out there.
Can you see into the audience with
yes,
the lights?
You can.
I feel like the stereotype you always see is like you can't see into the audience because
oh
of the
God, you can definitely see into the audience, and everyone looks, because you can see in the first few rows especially.
Yeah,
everyone looks. Like it's habit. We can't help it.
Narcissists like to see people watching you.
Exactly. We can't.
You agreed with it. Too late. Can't take back.
I am kind of narcissistic. I can't deal with that. But he said he saw her out there and that she was enjoying it. And he was so excited that she had been there to see the show. Mm-hmm. He told some friends and they said, she's dead.
Oh, he didn't know she was dead.
He had no idea she was dead. He just knew her from the painting, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a really interesting story. There are two different accounts of that, but it seems like every year that comes back up.
Yeah.
Someone new says the same thing. So another report said that if you stand on stage mm-hmm. and you ask, Mrs. Galloway, how's my blocking? She'll appear in the booth in the back of the house as if in support of actors.
That's the weirdest version of Bloody Mary I've ever heard.
Right? But also, I feel weird about that one because I would never ask a director, how's my blocking? Because A, the blocking was given to you.
I was going to say, it's either you're fishing for a compliment or you're a complete idiot.
Exactly. You never look at a director and go, oh my God, was that good? And I know no one else can see my face, but you can.
Yes, and it is terrifying.
Yeah, you never ask a director, like, was that good? because if we didn't say it wasn't good, it was fine. Just go on.
Right. Expect it to be good.
Yeah, expect that it's good. Yeah, as a director, I will absolutely be like, okay, let's see what we can change here. So that is something, and that's a big phrase that keeps coming up. Like, Mrs. Galloway is my blocking, or how is my blocking? It's a big thing for them. The only time that she has been blamed for anything even remotely scary are the reports of her slamming doors in the halls during rehearsals when she notices that the cast is goofing off or not getting to work. And everyone seems to just regard this as a gentle reminder to get back to work and get focused.
So I can see, looking at your computer, I can see the portrait that you're talking about.
Don't look at.
And if I heard slamming doors and it was supposedly her spirit, I'd be like, I would snap to it.
You'd get to work, right?
She looks mean.
She looks mean, but also she looks like, I don't know. I like her.
It's the backwards chair for me.
Did you just make a TikTok reference?
I did.
Well, we'll get to her picture in a second. But what's interesting about this particular haunting is that it returns almost each year with new sightings.
Okay.
And there's no ill intent. There's nothing like poltergeist activity other than that door shutting.
Mm-hmm.
And it truly seems as though Doc Galloway cared so much for this program that she started, that she created, that she can't really leave it behind. Mm-hmm. I mean, did you hear the dates I said, how long she was there?
Yeah, she was there for like, what, almost 40 years?
Almost 40 years. Like, she built this program from nothing with an annual budget of $2,000. That makes me want to die. But yes, so this picture of her is the painting that is in the theater.
Okay.
And it is her, it is
a very
it's a very director portrait.
It's a very director portrait. Like, I envision this, like, if I was like a set dresser for like a period piece about Hollywood in its golden age, like a producer's going to have this portrait of themselves behind their desk.
Yes, I think that could be true. She actually wrote 2 books on directing.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually...
Did you order them?
In researching this, today when I was looking more into this, I saw them and I was like, I need to order. She has one about the director in the American theater.
Yeah.
So I want to order that one. My MFA is going to be a directing.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting thing to kind of look back on is the early American theater and how she perceived directors, because she's a woman.
Yeah.
And in the early American theater, we didn't really regard women too well.
Yeah. And she has like a stern grandmother vibe.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of directors, okay? And I've worked with a lot of female directors. Mm-hmm. They have to be stern, and I think it's incredible. I think it's a beautifully strong thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why in reading about her, I was like, I like her. I like her ghost. I like her haunting, because it's not bad, but it can be stern, like, get to work.
Right.
Or if you asked her about your blocking, she'd come up behind you and smack you on the back of the head.
Right.
I had a director once who pulled our ears when we did stupid stuff, so I just...
Well, that didn't happen nowadays.
I mean, it happened like 15 years ago.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen now. Just imagine like some kid's director coming and pulling their ears.
I guess that's not okay now, is
I'm going to text my mom right now.
Yeah, we didn't have cell phones. We were like borrowing cell phones from the director to call our parents to pick us up.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a really cool thing to talk about in terms of like hauntings in theaters, because they don't ever seem to be malevolent.
Right.
They definitely seem to be like really encouraging and positive forces.
Yeah. There was actually, in researching the Annie Russell Theater, several like paranormal investigator groups have gone in and done investigations, and there was one that has like a 30-minute video on YouTube. I watched maybe 5 minutes of it. And I'm like, I don't like this, because they were trying to make it out to be malicious.
Yeah, and I've even in saying that, like, we think that VP Henry, where we are, is haunted in a way, we've never seen anything malicious, though.
Right.
It's always just been kind of like there.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to very much, it is what you make of it, so.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we won't talk about the haunting in one of your apartments.
Yeah, we're not. Nope.
I didn't think that was too positive.
Yep, nope.
But yeah, so that is the story of Marion Galloway and the Marion Galloway Theater. I'm really upset, though, too, in choosing this one that I didn't choose it earlier this week.
So you could have done more research.
No, because I have a friend who actually lives in Tuscaloosa.
Oh.
And he works in theater.
Yeah, so I bet he's been there.
Guarantee he's worked in this theater.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome.
So that's my story.
Yay. Please stop rubbing your beard on your microphone.
I really enjoy that with this microphone. I don't know what's...
Please stop.
Everyone at home is cringing.
Yes. But so did you nerd out sufficiently? Has this satisfied your theater craving?
I guess. I think that there's more that we can talk about, but
this was one of the few episode themes that you were gung ho for.
Yeah, well, there's a couple other that I want to do, but this was
like the first one you suggested.
I think we'll come back to this one at some point.
Yeah, I want to look at maybe specific, because we both talked about directors.
Yeah, we did.
I kind of want to go back and look for like student specific.
Yeah, did student actors die on stage or something? Yeah, I do want to look for that.
Yeah, I want to go back and look for that.
And I think the same thing applies this week as every week. Like, we really want to hear what stories you guys have. And the thing is,
yeah,
I have seen all the things that have been posted or the likes we've gotten on Instagram recently, stuff like that. I know these people. And I know they have stories because they did not go to undergrad where I went or you went.
Right.
Tell us your stories,
please. But yeah, so you can tell us those stories at creepycampuspodcast@gmail.com. You can connect with us on Twitter or Instagram at creepycampuspod. We would love to hear from you. We'd also love for you to rate, subscribe, and share.
Yeah, a couple people have been rating and subscribing.
Yeah, and really the sharing. We're approaching Halloween very rapidly.
Yeah, we're going to try to get, what do we have, 2 weeks left till Halloween or 1 week?
We have this episode that'll go up this week, and then we'll have, after this, one more episode before Halloween, unless we want to do something special.
We might do something special. We'll look at doing something special that week.
Yeah, I've got an idea. I haven't not mentioned it to you yet.
Yeah, this is the first time I've heard of this.
Yeah. But so it is spooky time though, and people want to be spooked and want to hear. I don't think we're that spooky, but
we're talking about spooky stuff.
We're talking about spooky stuff. We're talking about stuff that people can connect to and relate to. So share us with a friend that might not have heard us yet.
Yeah, please.
Cool. Awesome.
Doug doesn't know how to wrap this up.
I never know how to end these.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks. Stay spooky.
Oh my God, stay spooky.